Hello guys and welcome back to another Booga video. And now today I am again in the Booga 2021 version. And this is the version that I just showed off the Onyx armor. But after I made that video, another armor was added called Ruby armor. And basically you can see I have the pickaxe right here. But in this video I'm going to be showing you how to get the Ruby armor, where the Ruby is actually located, and then the stats of the Ruby armor, tools, and weapons. So anyway, let's get right into this video. Unlike the Onyx armor, where you have to get to a certain level to unlock the crafting recipes, the Ruby armor is actually a Mojo item. So if I scroll down here, you can see all the Ruby items down here. And basically, you have to unlock a certain amount of Mojo points by rebirthing to be able to get all the Ruby items. So all of the Ruby armors cost 10 Mojo points. And then the bag costs 5 Mojo points as well. So you need 20 for these. This is 9, so you'll need 29. Then this is 8 Mojo points, so you need 37. I already have the Ruby pick, but it's 6. And then this is 6 as well. So in total, you will need 49 Mojo points to be able to get all the rubies. So yeah, that's a lot of rebirthing. As you can see, I have 43 Mojo points because I already unlocked the Ruby pick. So now it's time to just unlock the crafting recipes of all this Ruby armor. So let's do that. And finally, buy. And now my Mojo point is back to 0. That's so sad. Alright, but now if we type in Ruby, we'll be able to see all the Ruby items. Alright, so once you unlock the Mojo, you don't actually get the item. You unlock the crafting recipe, where you have to actually get the rubies, which you can see in my inventory right here. And basically, you need 10 for the Ruby helmet, 10 for the Ruby chestplate, and 10 for the Ruby greaves. So you need 30 in total for the Ruby armor. Then to get the tools, you need 5 each, so you need 10 more rubies. Then for the Ruby bag, you need 25 rubies. For the Ruby stick, you need 35 rubies. And then finally for the Ruby blade, you need 7 rubies. So in total, if you want to be able to get all these items, you need 107 rubies. Alright, so now let's just buy all the Ruby things. And I think that's all the items now. Let's get rid of this old Onyx stuff and let's bring in the new things. So basically, as you can see, on the Onyx bag, I have a slight sliver. But when I put the Ruby bag on, that actually drops just a little bit. You can like barely see it. But when I put on the Ruby bag, it drops just a little bit. So yeah, the Ruby bag has more space than the Onyx bag. And then we'll put on the rest of the armor. And whoa, this is cool. It's like the same helmet design as the Onyx armor, so it does look pretty cool still, and it's like see-through. This is a cool armor, I like it. And then here's the Ruby stick, and then we have the Ruby blade as well. Yeah, this is the full set of Ruby stuff that you can get with 49 Mojo points. And now I'm going to be actually showing you the locations of where you can find these rubies so that you can get the Ruby stuff. So first off, the first location, you're gonna have to come to this giant volcano over here. If you don't know where that is, it's right next to the Sky Island rope. So you're gonna need to come to this volcano. And then there's a cave right here. So you're gonna need to come inside this cave. And you're gonna have to do a little walking to be able to get to this ruby. It's a little bit of walking, but you're basically just walking like in a straight line. Just follow the pathway mainly. Just don't go down that hole. Just like stay on this general pathway. Alright, and then finally you'll make it to this steep area where you can see some like magma up there. So you're just gonna have to try and climb this. You might need to use lookout towers, but eventually you should be able to make it up. And there we go. So yeah, once you follow the cave, you should end up in here. Then as you can see, there are 2 ruby nodes right here. The ruby loads have 7,000 health each. So if you mine this, and also as we can see while we're mining the ruby lode, the ruby pickaxe actually does 150 damage to mining. So yeah, it's better than the Onyx pickaxe because the Onyx pickaxe actually got nerfed. So now it only does 125 damage. So yeah, the ruby pickaxe is better than the Onyx one at 150 damage. So then if we mine this ruby lode, you can see that each ruby lode drops 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rubies. So if you mine both of these ruby lodes, then you will get 10 rubies in total from this area. And once you mine the ruby lodes, you're going to want to get out of this area quick, because as you can see, there's lava above us, and it actually does constant damage to your health while you're in here. So once you get the rubies, you're going to want to get out of here before you burn to death, because burning to death probably isn't ideal. Alright, and now I'm going to show you the second location where you can actually get rubies, but I really don't suggest this pathway. I suggest just getting the 2 in the volcano, leaving the server, and then going back. That's how I got all my rubies, but you know, if there's a ruby location, I'm going to show it. So basically what you're going to have to do is you're going to want to come to this ice island right here. I know that there's 2 ice islands. There's one with like Shelby and stuff over there, but it's the one behind that. So you're gonna have to come to the one behind Shelby. And then once you get over here, you will see that there is a frozen god right there. So you're gonna need to mine this frozen god. All right, so we're gonna need to break these ice barriers as well. Here's another one. They really don't want us getting to this ruby, do they? And then once you get here and you see a split pathway, you're gonna need to go to the right. And when I tell you that there's a lot of walking, there's a lot of walking. You literally have to walk this place for like 5 minutes. It's so long. And there's another ice barrier. But yeah, basically, you're just gonna want to follow this ice pathway straight across. Just keep walking. Alright, and then finally, we've reached this area. Now, once you've reached this area where the ice cave ends, you're not gonna follow the ice cave anymore. You're gonna keep walking straight, and then you're gonna go into this more like rocky volcano-ish area.
7 hours later.
Yes, I'm still walking. Alright, and then finally, we've reached the end. And then once you see this here, this is the ruby crag. Basically, it has 7,000 health as well. And once you finally reach the end of the cave, you will find this ruby crag. And then you can mine this. And then once we mine this ruby crag, this drops 5 ruby as well. As you can see, there is a lot of walking for only 5 ruby, when in the other one, you walk for maybe like a minute and you get 10 ruby. So I highly suggest you don't do this one. 5 minutes of walking for 5 rubies isn't exactly a fair trade in my book. Alright, so after walking for like 10 minutes straight, I'm finally back out of that cave. And now it's time to test out the stats of the ruby stuff. So first off, while we were mining the ruby, we figured out that the ruby pickaxe does 150 damage to structures. So now let's see how much the damage the ruby axe will do. Let's get a big old hut. There we go. Then if we mine this, you can see that the ruby axe also does 150 damage to structures. There we go. So yeah, both the ruby pickaxe and the ruby axe do 150 damage to structures, which is better than the onyx stuff, because the onyx stuff only does 125 damage. It's now time to test out the stats of the ruby armor and the ruby weapons. So first off, ruby is a mojo item, so you can't actually drop it. So I got a friend in here, his channel link will be in the description for helping out. But anyway, first off, we'll test out the stats of the ruby armor, how much different tools and weapons do against it. Anyway, first off, let's start with the ruby stick. Ooh, it leaves them with only 27 health left. So the ruby stick does 73 damage against the ruby armor. That's a lot. Alright, now let's test out the ruby blade. Alright, leaves it with 41. So the ruby stick does 73 damage against the ruby armor, while the ruby blade only does 59 damage against it. So yeah, the ruby stick is better than the ruby blade. And now let's try the onyx stick. Right, it leaves it with 32. So the onyx stick does 68 damage against the ruby armor. So it's better than the ruby blade, but not the ruby stick. Yeah, the ruby stick is the strongest weapon. It does the most damage against the ruby armor. And the onyx stick is actually better than the ruby blade. So I just don't suggest buying the ruby blade at all. Like, just save a couple mojo points. And then the magma stick and the obsidian stick don't do that much damage to it. Alright, so now that we just tested out the stats of the armor, it's now time to test out the stats of the ruby stick and the ruby blade, the two new weapons. Against the ruby armor, we already figured out that the ruby stick does 73 damage against the ruby armor, while the ruby blade does 59 damage against it. So now it's time to drop the other armors. So first, we'll try out the onyx armor. So let's see how much damage the ruby stick does against the onyx armor. Alright, it leaves them with 24. So it does 76 damage against the onyx armor. So it did 73 damage against the ruby armor and 76 against the onyx armor. So the ruby armor is actually a little better than the onyx armor. It protected 3 more damage from the ruby stick. And now how much damage does the ruby blade do against the onyx armor? Alright, it leaves them with 38. So it did 62. And finally, we have the obsidian armor, which is probably the weakest. So let's see how much the ruby stick does against this. Oh! Oh no! Oh! Alright, so we had to make new obsidian armor because the ruby stick actually one-shots the obsidian armor. So I guess rip to all my other armor as well. But now, let's try the ruby blade against the obsidian armor. So it leaves them with 15. So the ruby blade does 85 damage against the obsidian armor. So it's almost a one-shot like the ruby stick, but not quite there. So yeah, the ruby armor is the strongest out of these ones. Then the onyx armor, then the magma armor, and then finally the obsidian armor, which you could literally one-shot now with this ruby stick. Alright, well, goodbye. Alright, so yeah, that's all for this video. I showed you guys all the ruby locations, all the new ruby items, and then the stats of all those items. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any Booga ideas for me for any of the versions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this Booga video. Please like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!